Some over-educated pseudo-intellectuals are now trying to argue against the term Anglo-Saxon, dragging it down to claims of racism and nationalism. It was true that the Anglo-Saxons were an ethnic group, and that many folk proud of England were also interested in them, but I don't see that as a bad thing. History had always been a way to look into one's own ancestors and a nation's past, and that's why so many were drawn to it in the first place. Patriotism and heritage are also a great way to get folks into history from a young age, especially lads. For the same reasons people love supporting their local football teams. This trend of getting rid of the terms like Anglo-Saxon is called decolonising the curriculum, and it came from American academics who'd been educated past their own cognitive abilities. Some of them just not liking England full stop, what we used to call traitors. It had since made its way over to the UK from the States, and started gaining ground around 2019. In 2024, Cambridge, York and Nottingham were rewriting history to try and deny the very existence of the Anglo-Saxons, proving that universities have become a joke and aren't fit for purpose. They also let outright Marxists indoctrinate students, like Dr. Eric Wade, a lead voice in the so-called decolonisation of the curriculum, and Mary Ramburn-Olm, a clear racist and race hustler. You could see just how off their heads and indoctrinated these folk are just by reading their ex-profiles. There were also folk like Susan Oosthuizen, who wrote revisionist books like The Emergence of the English, where she claimed there were too few archaeological finds to prove the Anglo-Saxons existed, while completely ignoring DNA evidence. To her, it might as well not exist at all. Susan brushed off Anglo-Saxon culture as just a regional twist on continental Europe, denying any real Germanic influence. She ignored the fact that Germanic tribes were in Rome, and that Anglo-Saxon culture were a blend of Romanized Celtic and Germanic roots. She also claimed the Anglo-Saxon migration were more multicultural, a theory DNA evidence had already disproved, showing her bias plain as day. Others argue that the term should be banned altogether, one such person being Dr. Mary Ramburn-Olm. They argue the word Anglo-Saxon is too exclusionary, too racist, and that Anglo-Saxon studies were too white. This is, of course, ridiculous, but some folks still fell for it. For example, the International Society of Anglo-Saxonists ended up changing their name to the International Society for the Study of Early Medieval England. Mary Ramburn-Olm had infiltrated and subverted the group from the inside, a common trick used by history revisionists and Marxists. She is also what you'd call a race grifter, someone who made money, duped folk and saw the world through a racial lens without realising they were the racist in the room. Some, like Jack Durand, didn't deny the evidence, but argue that the term excluded people. But I don't see how. You don't need to be an Anglo-Saxon to enjoy learning about English history and culture. For example, Arab is also an exclusive term by definition, yet you don't need to be ethnically Arab to take an interest in Arab history or culture. In a multicultural society, I'd say it were even more important to hold on to Anglo-Saxon as a term, to help folk integrate and get to grips with the nation they live in now. But yeah, the people most interested in English history are always going to be the English. I'm not sure why that surprises anyone. Who do you reckon's most interested in Han Chinese history? So why is the historic distinction useful? I like the difference between Anglo-Saxon and English when talking about history, because it is more descriptive. Even if it meant roughly the same thing, we know that if I said Anglo-Saxon monarchs, I am talking about kings like Alfred the Great. But if I said English monarchs, I mean kings like Henry VIII. More historically descriptive equals better. That said, I see no reason why the term can't also be used as an ethnonym, since it pretty much means the same as English anyway. Be sure to check out my other channel, History Sticks, for the complete, longer and comprehensive video.